Okay, this is Mrs. Grosland, and we're doing Unit 1, Lesson 4, and our learning target is that we're going to use some different strategies to compare and order fractions. By comparing and ordering fractions, we're going to use greater than and less than. So greater than, remember the point points to the smaller number. So if my number is 3, I can put that there, and I can say 6 is greater than 3. Other way around, I can do 3 is less than 6. So the point points to the smaller number, and that big open area points to the bigger number. So now we're going to compare 3/5 and 4/5, and I like to write them up and down like that. When you're typing them, you might have to use the slash key when you're on your Chromebook. Okay, but take a look at these fractions. They both are fifths. And very conveniently, we've got models here that are broken into fifths. And so I'm going to shade this first one 3/5. And then I'm going to shade the second one 4/5. So this is going to be my 4/5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And we want to know which one's bigger. Well, I think you probably knew before I did the drawing that the 4/5 is actually going to be the bigger one. So we could say that 3/5 is less than 4/5. So you're comparing the numerators, aren't you? Okay, so if we had, let's say they were both sevenths, and I have 5/7 and 2/7, everybody, would it be greater than, less than, or equal? Everybody? Greater than, right, nice job. I've got my kids in the classroom helping me today. Now let's take a look at this one. We have the same numerator, but now we have different denominators. So one strategy you could do is you could draw a model like this. You could do a pie graph. You could draw some kind of a picture. It's pretty easy with fifths and sevenths. Notice how this one whole is the same as this one whole. The top one is broken into 5 spots, so I'm going to shade 2 of the 5s. That's going to be my 2/5. And the bottom one is broken into 7s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going to shade 2 of those. Okay? And I can see that the 2/5 is bigger than the 2/7. If you think about that, if it's your favorite kind of pie or pizza, do you want the pieces broken into 5 or 7 pieces? 5, because the pieces would be bigger, right? The smaller the denominator, the bigger the pieces. So if the numerators are the same, we're going to look at the denominators and decide which one's going to be bigger. So if I gave you a choice, you can have 1/3 of a pizza or 1/7 of the pizza, which is going to be bigger, the 1/3 or the 1/7, everybody? Third. Okay, that was easy because they were unit fractions with the 1 at the top. Let's try 17/20 and 23/20. No, sorry. 17/50. Greater than, less than, equal, everybody? Greater than, because if it's broken into 20 pieces, think about a pan of brownies broken into 20 pieces, those pieces are so much bigger than if you had 50 pieces. All right, I think you got that part. Now, in your textbook on page 11, look down at the bottom. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, and we're going to do number 1 and number 2 together. Number 1, the numerators are the same. So we've got to decide with the denominators, is it going to be less than, greater than, or equal? It's going to be less than because a 7th is going to be bigger than a 9th. If you cut it into 7 pieces, it's going to be bigger. Okay? Over here in number 2, we've got 2/10 and 1/10. It's going to be greater than. I'd like for you to do 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, check your answers with mine. Hopefully you got the same answers. All right, now, what to do when you have a situation where you have something that looks like this, 2/3 and 3/4. Well, one of the things you could do is you could draw some fraction bars or some pies and shade them, okay? It's not always convenient. There is a way to find it mathematically, okay? So here's what we're going to do. To figure out which one is going to be the bigger one, we are going to make equivalent fractions. We're going to make some equivalent fractions. We're going to find what we're going to call a common denominator, or a number that 3 and 4 both go into. So if you know your math facts, you might know this already. Okay, if you don't know your math facts, what you could do is you can use your multiplication chart or the chart in the front of your room. And you can go across the 3's and across the 4's to figure out what number 3 and 4 both go into, what number appears in both rows. I'm hoping you see 12. Good. So I'm going to make those both into 12s, and then I can compare it because then I have the same denominator. So everybody, 3 times what number is 12? 4. And then 2 times 4 is 8. So another name for 2/3 is 8/12. Remember, we're multiplying the numerator and the denominator by the same number. 4 times what number is 12? 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9/12. So now I've got 9/12 and 8/12, and I know that 8/12 is less than 9/12. Okay? All right, let's try another one like that. Let's try a challenging one. 7/8. Ooh, I'm going to give you a really hard one. And 3/24. Yikes! I don't know my 24s. Anybody know their 24s? Really? 24 times 9, quick. He doesn't know his 24s. You could figure it out if you had paper and pencil, I know. Okay, but look at this. 8 goes into 24, doesn't it? So watch for that, especially where you have big numbers. If you really wanted to, you could multiply 8 times 24 and figure out what the answer is and use that as your common denominator. But here we're going to change this to 24s, like this. Okay, and watch how I do this. So 8 times what is 24, guys? 3. And so I'm going to multiply the top by 3. 7 times 3? 21. So another name for 7/8 is 21/24. Over here, look at how easy this becomes. 24 times 1 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3. Okay? You really just could have slid that over. So look at this. I'm comparing 21/24 and 3/24. It's definitely going to be greater than. All right. Let's try this one. Sorry, Smartboard's not working. So 2/5 and 3/10. I'm going to pause for a minute. I want you to find a common denominator, a number that 5 and 10 will both go into. All right, we've had some discussion about this in the classroom, and we came up with, I think, 3, maybe 4 different responses that you could use. I'm going to choose the smallest one that we came up with. 10 was the smallest one. Remember the trick? 5 goes into 10. Okay? Try to choose the smallest number you can, just because the numbers will be easier to work with. So over here, 5 times what is 10, everybody? 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. So another name for 2/5 is 4/10. They're equivalent fractions. And look at here, I can just slide this 3 over. So I've got 4/10 and 3/10. 4/10 is going to be greater than 3/10. All right, now put your pencils down and just watch what happens when I choose 50. Some people wanted to use 50. So I'm going to make this into 50ths. And really, the multiplying is pretty easy on this one. So 5 times what is 50, everybody? 10. And 2 times 10 is 20. Good job. 10 times what is 50? 5. And 3 times 5 is 15. So we've got 20 50ths and 15 20ths still greater than. So you get the same answer here or here, no matter what your common denominator is. With your common denominator, if all else fails, multiply the two together. Okay, questions so far? All right, so flip over to page 12, and up at the top is a box that kind of shows you how to use a number line. Personally, I think the number lines are really confusing, so I'm skipping over that, but you're welcome to look at that, and they might have some other tips for how to figure out the common denominator. All right, let's try number 14. So if you can't write this into your textbook, you could do it on a separate piece of paper or a whiteboard. I'm going to do it right here, but we need to find a common denominator for 3 and 7. So make an equal sign off to the side of each of those fractions and make a bar for your other fraction. Go ahead and get that set up. My apologies, we are on page 13 and not on page 12. Okay, so we're doing number 14 on page 13. Well, that's kind of backwards, isn't it? So a common denominator for 3 and 7, what could that be, everybody? 21. Did anybody come up with 21? This is a case where you just multiply them together. So I'm going to convert those to 21s. I'm going to make equivalent fractions. 3 times 7 is 21. 2 times 7 is 14. And look over here, 7 times 3 is 21, 3 times 3 is 9. So is it greater than, less than, or equal? Greater than. So go ahead and copy down what I have. All right, now we're going to try number 15, and I have a really hard time fitting my numbers into this really small space. Even in real life, when I'm doing a math problem, I like to write it on a piece of paper, and I make my numbers huge. Okay, I'm an adult, I can write small, but I make my numbers really big just because it makes it easier for me. So if you're having a hard time scrunching your numbers in on your page, by all means, take another piece of paper, use a whiteboard, use something. So my struggle is I've got to find a common denominator for 7 and 8. And I don't know my 7s and I don't know my 8s. So in the back of your planner, there's a multiplication chart. In the classroom, there's one on the wall, or you might have a little one at your desk. So go across the 7s and go across the 8s until you find a number that they both have. And I'm looking here, and the one they both have is 56, which is interesting because 7 times 8 is 56. So now I'm going to make my equivalent fractions so they have the same denominator, and then I can compare them. 8 times 7 is 56. 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 8 is 56. 6 times 8 is 48. Wow, look at how close that is. Imagine you have a bag of Jolly Ranchers, and they each have 56. One of them has 40. You can have 49 out of the 56 or 48 out of the 56. This one is 156 bigger, so it's greater than. All right, I would like for you to try number 17 right here. So in the classroom, a lot of kids came up with the common denominator of 30, but they didn't know what to do with it. You put that in the bottom, you put that in the denominator, and then you make your equivalent fractions. So 5 times 6 is 30, 4 times 6 is 24, 6 times 5 is 30, 5 times 5 is 25. Could you have chosen another denominator besides 30? Yes. You could have chosen 60, 90, 120, any multiple of 30. All right, let's try another one. We've got about 1 minute left on our recording. Flip over to the next page, and you see a bunch of problems for practice. Here they're asking you to put those in order. Let's try number 20. Okay, this is one that if you don't know your 12s, you can use the multiplication chart in the back of your planner. Find a common denominator and make equivalent fractions. Right. If you use 24, this becomes 18 24s because you're multiplying by 2. Over here, you're going to be multiplying by a different number, not the same number as over there. 6 times 3 is 18, and look, it's equals. All right, we'll be practicing this more when you come back to the classroom with me. Good luck. Stay well.